the doors blue at dawn. Inside, spotless attendance logs, no children, and printers warm from overnight batches of perfect days. Outside, agents synced across 30 counties, rolling up 18 facilities tied to one trusted community figure, Amina Farah Hassan. From those empty rooms, the trail ran digital. Thousands of synthetic identities, reimbursements routed through 43 accounts, and cash piling into floor-bolted safes. Stay as we follow the funds to a 4-story narcotics site and a discovery that forced investigators to treat childcare fraud like cartel finance. Doors went at 6:42 a.m. Attendance logs still warm from overnight prints. 18 centers open to silence. No kids, no staff, just staged classrooms and a clock running on a schedule that looked right, on paper. The question set the tone for the day. How did every sheet pass review when every room failed the smell test? The strike moved in unison across 30 counties. ICE, FBI, and HHS inspectors hit the ghost daycares while parallel teams walked into 12 suspected laundering offices at the exact hour. Hallway radios called clear within minutes because there was no one to detain. In the offices, shredders sat unplugged, servers humming, and desks lined with binders prepared for inspections that never needed to happen. Each location matched the others down to the stickered inspection dates on the walls. Agents expected messy ledgers, gaps, and contradictions. They found renewals stamped on time and binders that read like they'd been written to answer a checklist line by line. Attendance rosters had the same pen pressure, the same rounded timing marks, as if a single wrist had filled them all, copying a rhythm known by heart. Nothing looked improvised. Everything looked rehearsed. Physical tells broke the illusion. Toys still sealed in shrink wrap lined shelves without a fingerprint. Sleeping mats were arranged at exact angles. Fire exits were taped from the inside, a crude sign no bodies ever moved through those doors. In some buildings, kitchen thermometers still had the factory cling film. Cleaning logs listed rotations for staff that didn't exist. If a real child had smeared a wall, the paint didn't show it. Why did the paperwork glide through? Automated approvals and batch submissions. Month-long blocks of perfect days were fed into systems designed to approve speed, not question consistency. Where a quality inspector would notice a toddler aging out, the database saw a valid code and a matching provider number. Typical verification gaps did the rest. Infrequent surprise visits, heavy reliance on scanned forms, and a process that trusts compliance on its face unless flagged. With paper too clean to pry open, the teams followed plugs and light, routers tucked in ceiling tiles, printers with queued jobs at 3:12 a.m., and server racks labeled as billing exports sent a different message. File names looked routine, but the links pointed off-site. Cloud storage buckets held duplicates and logs that didn't belong to any single center. The labels were tidy, the contents weren't. Forensic analysts imaged the drives and compared lists. Names grouped by birth month, dates of birth in clusters, SSNs ticking upward in sequence like someone walked a number line. Remote logins routed through anonymized nodes that pinged from the same pattern of time zones, clocked in as if they had shifts. Some identities recycled addresses tied to closed apartments. Others used mailbox rentals with daytime-only access. As the lists grew, the outlines sharpened. 4,000 to 6,000 synthetic identities began to resolve. Families that never filed a school record. Children who never aged up in any system. Enrollment cards that used the same 2 phone numbers across dozens of profiles. The enrollments paired neatly with disbursements, and the disbursements matched days with no drop-offs, no pickups, no meals prepared. The core method was simple, scaled, and timed. Templated identities filled rosters. Perfect days arrived in batches before the first of the month. Reimbursements hit accounts on a cadence that dodged manual review, always one cycle ahead of any spot check. The gates looked secure from the outside, but they opened automatically when the code looked right. The paper was made to be flawless. The trail that mattered wasn't on the shelf. It ran through the ledger, where the payouts traveled, who synchronized the clocks, and what waited at the end of that wire. The transfers didn't drift. They marched. 43 accounts moved the same sums on the same days, and the timestamps lined up with invoices for fentanyl precursor chemicals. That isn't noise. That's a schedule. Someone wrote it, rehearsed it, and ran it month after month. At the front stood Amina Farah Hassan, a public face with credibility. She hosted fundraisers, sat on panels, and vouched for early childhood services. Behind that role, investigators mapped 5 to 7 daycare fronts tied together by quiet threads. Shared vendor contracts, common payroll processors, and IP addresses that pinged the same subnets. A parent saw a trusted provider. The network saw a clean on-ramp for money. Lease agreements overlapped. Insurance policies renewed in sync. Even janitorial invoices mirrored each other in line items and totals. Here's the tell that broke the spell. Real centers breathe. Billing swells around school breaks, attendance dips during flu season, and parents pay late. These accounts moved like a metronome. Reimbursements hit on fixed intervals, swept within hours, and landed at remitters that repeated the same routing footprint. Banks flagged nothing because each hop by itself looked average. Taken together, the rhythm gave it away. Fixed sums, narrow windows, no weekend drag, no bounce drafts, no odd spikes when a class adds 2 toddlers. Just clockwork. Follow the dollars. Reimbursements left holding accounts and split into first-layer shells with balanced inflows and outflows. A slice went to cash purchases at wholesalers that kept no inventory on site. Another slice stepped through money service businesses, then into crypto wallets that turned over fast. Fund, swap, drain, close. A third stream moved by courier. Sealed envelopes, consistent weights, scheduled pickups with the same 3 drivers cycling routes. By the end of each week, the flows reassembled to pay vendors that didn't advertise and landlords who never met a tenant. The identities that powered the inflow were grown like seedlings. Small transactions watered profiles for months. Co-pays, snack fees, activity charges. Once the trail looked seasoned, the amounts scaled. Mule accounts held the overflow and then emptied just below reporting thresholds. On the books, ledgers rolled over every quarter, purging detail while keeping high-level balances. Self-deleting logs wiped edits after reconciliation. Anyone peeking saw clean summaries and nothing underneath. Where did the schedule point? To an industrial site leased in layers by a holding company that existed only on paper. 4 floors, commercial vent stacks, and noise dampening that suggested heavy equipment. Rent cleared on the same week reimbursements peaked. Supplier payments matched catalog numbers for precursor chemicals used in fentanyl synthesis. The cadence tracked the production cycle. Inputs on Monday, payroll cash on Wednesday, movement on Friday nights. When agents went physical, the pattern had a face. Safes were bolted into concrete, stacked with shrink-wrapped bricks of cash. Parcels bore a scorpion insignia used by a cartel. Clipboards listed disbursement windows that mirrored bank timestamps, tying cash drops to production runs. A loading bay had reinforced doors and a sign-in board that never used real names, only color codes and shift blocks. The office whiteboard mapped week numbers to batch counts and outflow targets. Then the cost came into view. 61 people held in a locked annex, malnourished, quiet, and tracked by movement logs that assigned them to pill press shifts. Some had fingerprints altered, likely to break identity links. Intake notes reduced them to units and hours. The ledger treated labor like solvent, measured, consumed, replaced.